Hello, people, A through Z. There are critical things being missed. Otherwise, that body is sensed, even if it is a majority of people, even if it is everyone, black pupils, and that is being and having been adapted to. And this preaching method knew when the ways nature would demonstrate that to us per a preaching method, it knew it could hide also behind how the all groupings of humanity before they became this preaching method had already assigned, forced, tricked, hurt, and persuaded and sustained other things, others, or selves. Self-value blamed for it when people were arguing with themselves, like Native Americans against Native Americans before, and colonists against colonists, and all the differences with that, everyone against everyone, before America's founders were even born, before Russia's founders were even born. There was a human factory of nature breaching method entrenched that had complete possession over the sense and sensibilities of everyone. And they had to pretend other, otherwise they were sensed, including all groupings of humanity, no matter how powerful they could get. No matter how powerful a leader could get, for example, they're above locations, areas, and states that have only entertained what can't be entertained and afford conviction theory, let alone conviction proper regarding the Constitution's value unabridged and regarding the value of those original abridgments where they are positive means to discern the hyper invisible but still discernible breaching method that had constructed roles with itself as roles with overt criminal enterprises, private criminal enterprises, branches of government still criminally foreign influence, criminal insidiousness natures, / criminal insidiousness nature, / hyper criminal insidiousness nature, rather. See, everyone three ways per nature forces it. And science can be used to discern this. See, when everyone uses their own names, our names, our names A through Z, are having been used by the system. That's how it measures and maintains. That's the power to make everyone agree with itself against what we could discern. Every species, every body of the entire species body, no matter what country they are in, there are things we all want and need and agree about. And we have means better than free to get them to get it done. And better than we would be able to afford. That's what, in other words. And so that's why in Russia and in America, in China, there is infrastructure that our founders communicated distinctly from said. They were forced to entertain words. That in other words, they were forced to entertain since before they were born, before modern religions messengers were born. Names A through Z had already been entertaining uses of names A through Z and the science's names from off those locations, collusions with it. But already they had forced, tricked, hurt, and persuaded without even realizing all in other words, all truths. They were blaming all the things that, in other words, blame it on white. Native Americans are white. If you look at what white is being, they call all these different countries are white. In other words, and no one left out, everyone leaves out the breaching method that is right there. It's the one that put with the laws, sickly distinctly in the North and in the South. It's the one that put wars as a amended definition of what the ancients would have revealed it before the sciences became criminally foreign influenced. Increasingly tactically delusions wrought. And relative to relativity, the identity of hyper-relativity itself, that which has manifest distinct species in our own, so we could discern the hyper-invisible but still discernible. So we could discern the distinct identity of hyper-simultaneous, which is distinct from the simultaneous. It comes also with the value of the slash because it is functional. How it is it is 5 distinct identities of hyper invisible but still discernible. It is 5 distinct identities of power that are simultaneously positive to themselves, or or it is positive only as a criminal insidiousness nature of positive. Per nature, how nature teaches us to speak for the law. I am not a lawyer. Black pupils. We have black pupils, white. We have the same color eyes and different color eyes at the same time, and there are exceptions. And see, nature communicates with these answers, and they bring revelations because it is a method of truth that doesn't use truth for lies. And if they, or truths to screen the use of lies, or use truths to force entertained nature as value, like criminal insidiousness natures of order. This breaching method assigned certain type of victim / hyper victim as people A through Z. If you're a formal law or not, everyone speaks for the law because the sciences share an identity. But and then this breaching method knew that all formal and private lawyers, people experts on the law, would pretend to be credibility the way it showed them. In other words, abridged credibility, a part of an abridgment system relative to where and to how the Constitution we're directed, we're communicated by nature itself and by our founders to get the Constitution unabridged, to maintain its abridgments undiscerned. It maintained roles communicating other for our founders than they communicated, knowing that nature would demonstrate that to people, even if they didn't read about the founders' right, because A through Z guys have not read about founders' right. We were taught, we were told, we're told to explain our founders and who asked to be recognized as the face of James Madison and his plan. They agreed to use his plan. And it's the only thing that could be the only plan that was possible, even though there was no means to unentrench roles with all kinds of different entrenchments that were connected, sickly distinctly too, like slavery, sickly distinctly north and south, with the color black and white, with those laws and with enforcements of it. Therefore, uses of the sense and sensibilities for a human fact treating nature breaching method. And if we observe what is actually recorded, everyone was enslaved, sickly distinctly too, because it was functional for the breaching method to measure and maintain who's not blaming other things, others themselves, for what the breaching method caused. And nature was and is increasingly demonstrating. See, this knew that it made that part of the law too. Everyone to blame other things, others themselves. And didn't even realize that because had been sustained roles with it since before modern religious messengers were born. And this is also more probable and practical reading of religions, which is relative to scientific reading of the religious books, for example, the Old Testament and the Quran. They are read exactly opposite of how they direct to the books to be read right up front in the beginning. See, we can't have this defended in natures of experts and of jobs. No. See, with this preaching method employed, natures of industries, natures of roles with systems A through Z, tactical ulterior from its system /S, which is relative to where and to how it shows us the rest of the identity of the hyper simultaneous. We only could discern an extent of it. But with any subject, the extent of it we can discern comes with its complete identity of relationship to itself. So that part that is incomplete, it comes with what is only increasingly valued too that way, as its complete identity of relation to itself. In other words, hyper invisible but still discernible distinct parts of itself, just like the 5 parts of a cell. Cell nucleus, cell body, cell wall are bound 3 grouped, but they come also with the value of appreciation for the water and their elements, positive or negative, it shows up, and the gases, positive or negative. It's just like it is because it simultaneously shows us, we know it shows us the value of truth. Sequence, what came first, true sequence per its rolls with question. We know that nature assigned us to use questions. And nature has simultaneously questions as confessions. See, well, we haven't addressed this because those confessions are still in the different confessions also as questions are still manifest because everyone left out how the law experts of every science leading up to it, all levels of it. There are short word possessions that can't defend themselves and the importance of getting the Constitution unabridged and of needing to understand why and how George Washington agreed to help our founders plural and why that's right in the context where we're supposed to refer to them as the face of James Madison and as the person of James Madison. And we're supposed to understand that plan was relative to that breaching method. We're supposed to understand that breaching method singular and how it was using all the roles with it plural. It forced that sustained. So we could just use honesty and soul, knowing that we are this hyper native system. We are not all Native Americans. I'm not a Native American. But we have president/chief. So we are of this hyper native tribe. Everyone can't help but be hyper native, which the Constitution Unabridged is. And that's part of why it is president/chief. I didn't read that, the slash part, but nature shows us this. Just like cell body, cell nuclear, cell wall /S, they're group 3 waves. Again, they have those other 2 identities of sequence/simultaneous nature because its identity. Look, our species has individual group difference /S and species volume, individual species body of individual bodies. And the ancients follow this because we also know that it has other species manifest this way too. And the ancients revealed any subject individually grouped or together that we could grapple with. This is more probable because nature shows us. If you have black pupils, whites of eyes, when formal identities speak on what color there are collusions that are discernible. There's forgiveness is to make is because this thing employed all the roles with itself, reliant upon other things, others ourselves. Blame for the real cause /S of the worst negative value nature progressions, acts, and natures, like killings, like killers in New York City. Before that, like for example, distinctly from the suburbs, which were designed for torture, extortion, and slavery simultaneously against everyone, sickly distinctly too, to keep how sickly non-distinctly again functional left out by by nature or in syntax of everyone, appreciation of it, or that body would be sensed, even if that body is a majority of people. In other words, so we have to have mandated law followed properly, and we have to know that we have to appreciate where and how this breaching method employed, jobs, and all positive things and negative things as collusions to keep from discernment the identity of the identity possession of and the identity itself of the breaching method, the identity maintaining the breaching method and what it causes and nature's demonstration of it blamed on other things other than yourself. In other words, to appreciate this, we have to appreciate how easy it is to discern how the sciences are abridged, Black pupils. In other words, and I'm one of the people who was in the World Trade Center context in Manhattan. I was in the Ninth Circuit Court right before the attack. And I know various ways to prove conclusively there are people from Connecticut who had roles with the World Trade Center, the spots next to it, and one of them being the Ninth Circuit Court, who have also been planting identity theft, fraud, slanders since I was a kid. And their rules with names that used all sides. My Saudi friend wasn't with me. She at the time. In other words, and she wasn't with me. But people from Central Connecticut State University, and associated with former director of the FBI and his depositions of him, I found out, tied to the courts too. The courts and their family members had been affected to federal evidence as crimes, and predicate acts roles with former director of the FBI and with some courts families, and with foreign and domestic military and criminal enterprises and child offenders and people with roles with recorded conscious uses of apparently all other ways unconnected body dumping spots and murders and shootings that have connections, timed uses of it intercities. These are also uses of confessions by this breaching method that is relative to where and to how and to why, for example, confessions are apart with the Catholic Church, for example. But this breaching method, no. So you had to leave us with everything it had to tell us, even in cipher. Like it knew that it would be able to decipher it before. In other words, the message of religious books knew that anything they had to tell us through cipher, the breaching method would discern at first, or rolls with it, which is everyone. But no one understands the rolls with it, because no one can fathom this. How to get one, led by power/might, per its definition of it, nature's. So we have to have mandated law followed. WFSB is a Connecticut news location who attach me to fake locations. They have roles with FBI and other agencies and foreign and domestic military and wire crimes on and off their locations. There's a Mazzucato bakery, and there's a modern pastry. A whole bunch of people tied to a John Maiano, and people with the name DeMoro and Aiello, who have roles next to campuses with names next to campuses, attaching kids at the campuses and their family members to fake conversations with themselves through others, though. They just act tied to it. In other words, there's identity theft, fraud, slanders manifest. Because that's what is manifest, where nature is demonstrating sickly distinctly. We are being tortured, extorted, and enslaved. So WFSB has categorical after the World Trade Center attack with the people intercities and interstates and internationally for worse, but leading up to the World Trade Center attack in that context and since. The only time I ever had a very short conversation with a Keene family was after people or their neighbors have rules with body dumping spots through time that keep getting brought up different ways. People with whiting forensics and people with the World Trade Center who have roles with the court next to it, who also plant evidences on all sides of criminal and civil cases while the courts switch names and sequence and stack fake evidences into databases relative to where and to how investigators are being and haven't been used as their campuses and homes and everyone next to everything next to everyone. This is a game they play with that. A whole bunch of foreign countries have it played everyone their own against their own, our own against our own. Because they're hyper foreign here. So in other words, whiting forensics is increasingly involved with people, and the FBI has rules with the names that we're typing on my social media. And then they coach the Facebook and the Twitter and YouTube. Like, for example, there's a Joshua Julian who's recorded involved with FBI and courts with a principal upskirt nature, and his Facebook page on the campus with some KKK black themed and Confederate flag themed, foreign and domestic military, and roles with the World Trade Center predicate acts. So they paint everyone around them with the fake conversations as we're kids, per their rules of all these different countries, like O'Brien's and the people associated with the medical corruption tied to the other families that used to be in my neighborhood. There are medical families that were with mental health care databases and with police forms with that and courts that speak fake things in records. And they've been doing that so long because those they're shown they have to hide line progressions at other locations. Department of Motor Vehicles, Department of Transportation, all kinds of natures of investigators, people with the name Perone too, involved with spots next to WFSB and Fox Connected News, and the campuses and their homes increasingly involved. They have roles with people all along roads and routes planting evidences. Has something to do with 3 spots at the end of the Berlin Turnpike with the people at Harvard Hospital tied to, and I don't know all their names. There's a Mark Violet and a Mike Violet. And they have roles with people like with the name Demaro, Mayano, and Aiello next to Harvard Hospital's campuses and next to the campuses with people, I don't know their names. They have roles with them with the FBI and other agencies and overt criminal enterprises and private ones. And they're educators too, putting fake things in databases with them. In other words, and they're with courts switching and forging names that are refusing to get on paper. They have remote uses of the Facebook pages. They have roles with digital child offenders. A proven principal child abuser was and is further involved with males and females of the intelligence community that were planting evidences and roles with those kind of things they're putting people in jail for, including the principal child offender. And they hid his confessions and confirmations to me because other confessions brought the campus up to me in the first place, which is roles with untimely deaths with people at Trinity College and untimely death there, who are the roles with the principal child abuser in Wethersfield, and a whole bunch of people tied to corners of streets near me, used throughout the time with fake instances of knowing me, increasingly tied to the people who were at schools I went, putting fake illusions and fake passions and emotions with overt criminal enterprises, private ones, and various natures of federal criminals tied to mayors and people that don't even know each other. And then if you say that, they'll try to make they're caught. They made fake, people weren't even in the same campuses. Like a Lance Cuddy is involved with people with former mayors, increasingly with medical families, like one's named Leahy, and they've been switching names with the police forms that I caught on my street. I never saw on my street in my life. I never had conversations with them. They pretended whole categorical fake conversations with me. In other words, they're as roles further with medical, sexual, and legal abuses of kids. They have judges putting fake things in records, and while they're tactically delusions raw, these are also doctors and nurses of with databases, putting fake things in databases. They have rules with overt criminal enterprises and private ones. Fear God. Get Judge Napolitano. There's a Phil Cololo, also a Bob Chase and Whiting Forensics increasingly has rules with crime scenes and body dumping spots, and names that Sandy Hook campuses further involved with child offenders and medical abuses of Adam Lonzo that are relative, and roles with guns, a whole bunch of guns. People with the name Kerr. It also recorded, confessed, demonstrated, confirmed by the police and by the courts, pretending other, but simultaneously doing that at the same time since I was a kid. And they're further involved with that. Whole bunch of people tied to them at corners of streets like at Old Weathersfield and Salstein Highway. And these are the people involved with Pakistan and Afghanistan, on off Trinity College with criminal enterprises. And people between other campuses in the same age group with their rackets with intercultural, interreligious spots and uses of the words class. You know how we could be in the same class with someone, but like we have and the grant and in some schools, like for example, you're in one class and you have one teacher in sixth grade. But you're and that's your sixth grade class, and there's another sixth grade class with another teacher. And one of those teachers, when I was in sixth grade, for example, lived the street over. His kids are increasingly involved also with the religious spots and the people involved with the religious differences and all kinds of the natures of differences. Black pupils as the ones involved. Also with the murders, and then when I was in fifth grade, there was a Demaro involved with a Mr. Abruzzi, who keeps getting brought up with people's confessions and demonstrations, and as their roles of predicate acts with Central Connecticut State University leading up to the World Trade Center attack in that context and sense, with people involved with Washington D.C. and with New York City, including the World Trade Center and the spots next to it, who have roles all along Route 175, all along Salstein Highway, all along roads and routes like Route 3 and its conjunctions and adjacent /S to it, and the difference of that. And sometimes that is just someone who knows someone tied to there. But there's the state tradition and the corrections officers, same thing. One of the things that they also all recorded, confessed, demonstrated, confirmed is the corruption here and the names that used to be tied over here with the narratives, putting fake things in databases on and off campuses and off people's homes and next to them. See, the people involved with, and there's nothing against Koreans. You know, God help us, A through Z, because we have these people, we have this preaching method shows them how to do what it needs done. Like play these games. They go, this person said this person said that. All kinds of methods of making it impossible for anyone to use short words properly. And if they do, they're sensed through our own, and that's adapted to. And that's recorded. But see, this is being replaced by fabricated, recorded things and blind defenses of the names of the branches of government and of their titles. That's what, in other words. And the difference of that, because these are at the same time with overt criminal enterprises, private ones, and insidiousness to the logic of people A through Z, where you have recorded self-value, other having been communicated for our fathers and founders, then they communicated for themselves. And regarding James Madison's plan and the significance of why and how, that's what George Washington agreed to help. And the significance of where and how we're supposed to be honest about the extortion of George Washington. And ye have not been, ye all town. gather round vaccines. Nothing personal against the mayors, too. See, the mayors have also lawyers of the FBI and of the Wethersfield police, like a Robert Luskin has a lawyer, Robert Chevrolet, and he was warned not to show up in that case by a judge in an NLRB case. In other words, and so him and his co-defendants were in a 2006 district court case, which is another part of the case. And this is involved with a whole bunch of people next to Fox Connecticut News right before that, and long-term before that, as the ones who were short-term and long-term before the World Trade Center attack, planting evidences in the crime scene with all sides and uses of the differences of it. This is also relative to where and how it's hyper-evidential. That and how the Quran and the Old Testament are being read exactly ulterior from how they wanted to be read. And the difference between who's guilty with that, the people preserving it or the people attacking them, is also being exploited. They have it as a shell game. So follow mandated law for A through Z. Yeah. Fix the fake news, especially regarding the World Trade Center attack and fake conversations, because there are other natures of organized crime. And there are more people with guns and knives and poisonous threats. And with the fire department involved with uses of smoke and phenomena, they know about that, as the ones with wire crimes, and with the Wethersfield police, and with Russians and Americans, how really they are shared with medical and fire campuses. Confessions run deep. Yeah.